Lawyers of Reddit. What is the most ducked up case that you have fought or seen? Worst I've heard was a divorce case where both parties fought to not have the kids stay with them. It's so depressive to think about the children in that case. My uncle lawyer helped a relative with a traffic ticket. Relative was conspiracy nut and wanted to take it to court to reveal the lies. Uncle just paid the fine and told her she won. Client insisted on suing an employee who failed to show up to work, which caused a contract to be cancelled. The employee didn't show up to work because he died. A sociopath in a psych ward making suicide pacts with vulnerable people and never following through. Charged with murder. Determined he was too out of his mind to be accountable. Gonna be in an asylum for the next 2 decades unless something major changes within the case. Not a lawyer, but used to work in a law firm. One attorney told me about a case he was trying where the defendant was up for animal abuse charges. What did he do? Well, he and his wife were going through a nasty divorce and he had moved out and started living with a friend. One weekend, he knew his wife and kids were away, so he got hammered and decided to go duck up the house. This dude totally trashed it. But the worst part, he took his kid's new kitten and placed it in the microwave, turned it on. He left it there for them to find. Ducking disgusting psycho. In a pro bono program, I was assigned to handle the request of an inmate to be released after serving 2/3 of his sentence. When I read his file, I discovered that he was convicted for kidnapping a woman, tying her to the right front wheel of his Jeep, and torturing her to death with some sort of homemade flamethrower. When I went to see the guy, he denied everything and told me he was appealing the verdict, which legally was not possible anymore. It was really weird sitting in a room with this guy, knowing what he was convicted of, and knowing that he'd been denying the conviction for almost 20 years. Needless to say, his request to be released early was denied. Not a lawyer, but was on jury duty once, and the defendant was accused of breaking into an old lady's mobile home, raping her for several days, then tying her up and putting her in the trunk of her own car on the driveway in 110 heats to kill her. She survived over a day in the trunk when someone found her. Not my case, but I was sat in chambers waiting to be heard when it came before the judge. A reasonably successful businessman had died, leaving a will in which he left all his business assets to his wife, on the condition that she destroy everything. Inventory, parts, records, office equipment, all of it. If she refused, everything was to be given to the Hemlock Society, an organization in the States somewhere that advocates for the assisted suicide. Shortly after making the will, he committed suicide, having arranged for his death to be video recorded and the recording to be emailed to his wife and kids automatically. The lawyer didn't say what the method of suicide was, but did say that it was traumatic for all who received the video. Unsurprisingly, the lawyer sought and received a consent order to amend the will to delete the destruction condition. He had the agreement of the Hemlock Society, which wanted nothing to do with a donation. Understand those conditions. I'm here to provide comedic relief. My buddy is an attorney and was working on a case against some company that was dumping pollution in a large local body of water that had a direct opening to the ocean. He gets a letter from an incredibly concerned local dude. He wrote this long ass letter begging my buddy's team to do all they can to win the case against the polluting company for the sake of the mermaids that were living in that local body of water. He had seen them often, guys. He had been trying to befriend them for quite a while now and was concerned for their well-being and for the possibility that they would move out to the ocean to find a cleaner home if the company kept dumping pollution into their area. I wish I could find that pic of part of the letter. In case you are as concerned as he was, fear not. My buddy's team won the case, and that company is no longer dumping their waste in that body of water. Arnold, I work for one. We represented a family who tried to ruin a teenage boy's life. They fabricated police reports, falsely claimed he stole expensive electronics from them, and took their claims to the very uninterested school the boy attended. When cops tried to investigate, the family evaded the investigator and lied to him. Why do all this? The family's son was crushing on a girl they were hosting in their home. She chose to date the boy in question over the son. All 3 kids were classmates. The boy got a hefty settlement from the family. This case was outside our typical areas of practice, but they came from a friend of the attorney. A woman was alone with her baby after her husband got deployed. This was not long after the baby was born. Then the baby passed away, and the body had some strange bruising. The mother insisted the baby crawled out of her sight and fell down the stairs. The case ultimately got reassigned from our office, and the mother was pissed. She told the primary lawyer on the case that she had indeed killed the baby. She basically bragged about it, and she had zero remorse at all. Seeing the infant's autopsy photos was absolutely horrific. Case told to me by another lawyer on one of my cases. 2 guys decided to give a marijuana laced brownie to their co-worker without telling him it marijuana in it, right before he started his shift. As a crane operator, it went predictably badly, resulted in an accident, and even their union agreed the guy should be fired. I'm here for a bit of a comedic break from all of the heavy stuff. Also, I did submit this to Not Always Right when it began, but I never provided the ending. I'm not a lawyer, but I work at a law office. A regular part of my job is to screen potential new clients' PNC to help our attorneys decide if they have a case or not. Is the case worth taking? Is the client reliable if we take the case to litigation? Etc. etc. I still remember this clearly, despite it being over a year ago. One Monday morning in January 2020, with me fresh in the office with a hangover and feeling like death warmed over, this flashed on my screen from our online contact form. PNC requests a call back regarding car accident, and her insurance company is now refusing to cover the cost of a breast enlargement that her doctor stated was to help her balance after car accident caused spinal issues. Well, because I'm an absolute sucker for punishment. That is despite all common sense and several women telling my boss to not touch this flaming shit pile. I end up following up with this PNC. So, she comes into the office and the story unfolds. It starts with the obvious. She's this tall, no longer willowy recovering trophy wife who can't quite lose the 10 pounds of baby weight from being her plastic surgeon husband's source of the prerequisite junior and princess. Her husband is this Danny DeVito stunt double and talks like molasses while smelling like rum and coke. I didn't like him because he couldn't stop eyeing me up and made several comments about coming to him when I lost weight so he could do my skin surgery. She's in an auto accident in her hubby's Porsche Cayenne. Beautiful car. Honestly, well, at the end of the case, after the property damages paid out and she got most of the medical care paid for, they trophy and doctor make a complaint. It seems fairly simple at first. The auto insurance didn't pay a medical bill, so we send the legal version of a WTF. Dude, you said you were gonna pay this out. Letter because my employer thinks you up a few easy billable hours. This soon after Christmas. Santa, baby, I've been an awful good boy. The auto insurance company sends back a LOL. You're smocking that good shit, brah. We ain't paying for this. Talk to your client about what this bill is for and who's getting paid. So, we look at the bill. It's from her husband for her breast enhancement, which her husband said was medically necessary because the enlarged breasts balanced her spine, so she had less back pain. Needless to say, we dropped trophy wife and Dr. DeVito post haste. I told him not to take this case. I really did. Not my case. But I was at the Frank Crowley Courthouse in Dallas for work and had free time to watch some of the trial against Chris Dunchaka Dr. Death. I watched 2 of his victims come into court in wheelchairs and a nurse testify about how he severed this patient's spinal cord and basically walked out like he didn't care. The victims in wheelchairs were supposed to undergo an hour-long procedure, go home for recovery, but instead woke up in the hospital paralyzed. Really ducked up case and a tragedy that he was allowed to keep bouncing around to different hospitals without repercussions. Anyways, I haven't seen the mini-series yet, but my friend has, and she was like, I'm sure they dramatized it. You know Hollywood. I honestly don't think you can dramatize that, at least based on the testimony I saw. Not a lawyer, but I got my ex-husband to sign an agreement to pay back $10,000 worth of damages and back bills ran up in my name when we separated. I went back to live with mom. He destroyed our marital home when him and his NGF were in fights. When I took the home back over got better job, I saw that my home was destroyed and several months mortgage wasn't paid. After he agreed to it, court rolls around and I have the most obnoxious judge I've ever seen. My first sign was she said it's the day before New Year's Eve. I'm visiting friends tonight so let's make this quick, and begins to dance in her chair laughing. She literally didn't look at the signed agreement and dismissed the case in a matter of minutes. I was completely dumbfounded. My agreement was drawn up by a lawyer and she didn't even bother to ask me to hand it over to her. After we were dismissed, my ex-husband remarks that's good cause today is my birthday, which oddly it was. She started joking with him on the way out. Not only did my mouth drop, but more than one person came up to me and they're strangers. One lawyer and said this was the worst display of behavior they ever seen by a judge. She didn't let me or my husband speak. I was a divorced single parent with $10,000 in back bills and a home destroyed. My children's bedroom, furniture, their toys were busted up. I waited months to get to this case. I had everything prepared. I sought a lawyer with what little money I had and felt entirely cheated. I'm a medic, not a lawyer, but have had to testify a few times. One time a guy did something stupid enough it ended up on national news for a minute. He was offered a plea deal that would have kept him out of jail and wasn't bad at all. He pleaded not guilty. What he did was on video. Like Jude, it was on Ducking Comedy Central. I think you did it. Not a lawyer. I once had a 65-year-old guy try to sue me when I was 12 years old because I set up his modem while he was in town. Then he moved and continued to use the internet. He racked up an $800 long distance bill and tried to sue me, a 12-year-old, over it. He continued to harass me for months, leaving messages on my answering machine, and ended up singing Green Acres is the place to be and yelling I'm going to get you. We saved all of it in case he actually went through with the lawsuit. Never made it to court. SRY. This kinda breaks the entire construct, but I thought I'd share. I'm not a lawyer, but my dad used to be a reporter for court cases. I hope this is allowed. He covered a case where 3 guys were sitting around a campfire in the suburbs. 2 got into an argument and it got heated. One ended up killing the other, cut off his head and propped the head on top of a tree trunk and continued taunting the head. It was a papaya tree. Don't know why I remember that part of the story most clearly. The 3rd guy watched the whole thing and did nothing. Represented a painter getting sued on a construction defect job. The painter was hired to paint building 2 and 3. He showed up for work, performed the work, and on his way home got into a terrible car accident, leaving him paralyzed from the neck down. He was sued several years later for water intrusion defects related to buildings 7, 9, which he didn't work on. Felt terrible for the guy. Not me, but my aunt was a lawyer and she worked on the BTK case. I only learned about it once I was an adult, and when she mentioned it, she seemed really far off mentally. I've never looked the case up personally, but I know what the BTK stood for. I can't imagine having to see the evidence in that case and be in the same room as the man. Filing charges against a John Doe because client was arrested for a crime her did not commit and spent a year and $40,000 defending himself in a prior criminal case. Man ended up proving in court that the man he was filing against stole his identity to commit crimes. Man also brought the investigator of the original case as a witness, solely to force him to lie on the stand. Nothing happened to the investigator other than him embarrassing himself. Man won and sued for 3 times the damages. My first trial case was about a 26-year-old who was arrested for possession of drug paraphernalia. But after spending 2 weeks in jail they rushed her to the hospital where she died. Turns out she had a heart valve infection and told them about it day 1. But they wrote her off as a druggie and that she was just faking her symptoms. She had 2 kids. And we lost the case because the defense made the entire case about her drug use and argued that she did it to herself. The case of the bloody knife. A man was found next to a murdered body. He had the knife in his hand. 13 witnesses had seen him stab the victim, and when the police arrived, he said, "I'm glad I killed the bastard." Massing but not only got him off, he got him knighted in the New Year's honors list. and the relatives of the victim had to pay to wash the blood out of his jacket. The summer after my first year of law school, I interned at the public defender's office. I went to meet a new client who was accused of rape. Within 20 seconds of meeting the man, he told he was not guilty and had proof. His proof was I tried to rape her, but was too high on meth to get an erection. Needless to say, we didn't go with that defendant and my internship ended before we went to trial. Not a lawyer, but I was reporting a crime to the police and the detective in charge told me his station had just solved a huge drug bust. The drug dealer was speeding in his van with millions of dollars worth of drugs inside when he lost control of his vehicle coming around a corner and crashed into a bunch of police cars parked outside the front of the station. Needless to say, the police were very happy and labeled it the easiest drug bust ever. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.